Good afternoon and welcome to the Cabinet meeting. As usual, this is being broadcast live via the County Council's website and it will be archived so you can view it afterwards. Would everyone please remember to switch their microphones on before they speak and turn it off when they finish speaking. So first of all is apologies for absence. We have apologies from Mr O'Shea and Mr Rushton is dialing in via MS Teams. Item 1 minutes pages 3 to 14. I move that the minutes of the meeting held on the 15th of December 2023 are taken as read, confirmed and signed. Is that all agreed? Thank you. Item 2, urgent items. There are no urgent items to be considered today. However, I would like to give an update on the recent flooding which has affected many communities in the county. All of us here are conscious of Storm Babette and its impact on our residents and business owners. Officers have been working round the clock to support where we can. Since Thursday night, our highways teams have worked tirelessly and responded to more than 200 reports of flooding and closed 24 roads, with the highest affected areas being Charnwood, Melton and North West Leicestershire. Our network of flood wardens who we support with signs and materials have been out and about playing a vital role supporting their communities. Flooding is devastating when it affects you directly, and we're sorry to hear of the difficulties many people have experienced. Managing and responding to flooding is a complex setup involving many different partners, but we work closely with the emergency services, district councils, the Environment Agency and others in preparing for managing and recovering from incidents such as this. It will depend on the source of flooding as to who is a responsible body, but we'd encourage anyone who's experienced flooding in their property to email flooding@leics.gov.uk or use the report it form on our website. This would enable us firstly to make sure that support is given and that looking forward we understand where flooding may reoccur and work to reduce the risk. We have already begun a number of investigations into the flood impacts, and the information provided to us by those who have experienced flooding firsthand is invaluable in this process. I would also like to put on record the Cabinet's thanks to all officers, flood wardens and other volunteers who've done a great job in such miserable circumstances. On to item 3, declarations of interest. Does anyone have any interest in respect of any items on the agenda? Christine?
Pecuniary interest on item 4, recycling household waste.
Thank you. Pam?
I'd like to give a I want to give you a thing about Melton, the Melton Road.
Your microphone's on.
Sorry, I've always voted that I've got pecuniary interest, and that still stands. So I will leave the meeting when that item is discussed.
Any other interests from anybody? Okay, I need to declare an interest in item 7 and I will leave the room during the discussion. Mr Breckham will chair the meeting for this item. Also, I've received an email on item 8 this morning from Nick Payne from Tritax with some information on the Hinckley rail freight. I think other members of the Cabinet may also have received the same email. I've not responded to the email and the decision of the Cabinet will be communicated to Tritax after the meeting. On to item 4, recycling and household waste site proposed consultation, pages 15 to 34. So our first report today sets out the proposal to achieve savings included with the MTFS in relation to the recycling and household waste site service and seeks approval to commence a public consultation exercise on these proposals. Joanne Gill, Assistant Director of Environment and Transport, will present the report and then I'll ask Blake if he wants to add anything as lead member. Over to you, Joanne.
Thank you. Good afternoon, everyone. Yes, through you, Chair, as you've said, the purpose of the report today is advise Cabinet around the proposals that we've developed to meet the needs for savings as part of the MTFS from our council-run recycling household waste site service, and hopefully to seek approval from Cabinet to carry out a public consultation on those proposals. In financial terms, the proposals in this report are estimated to achieve around £420,000 a year. 270,000 of that would come from the closure of 3 of our sites and 150,000 from a reduction in the summer opening hours at all of our sites that would start from April 2025 onwards. The body of the report sets out the legislative and policy framework under which the council runs its recycling household waste site services, the scale of the savings that the service has already realised over the past 10 years, what the current offer is to residents, which includes 5-day opening across all 14 of our sites all year round, and we apply a single service approach to those sites. The report also references a scrutiny commission appointed cross-party scrutiny review panel who considered extensive data about the RHWS service and looked to test the criteria that we applied in identifying those potential sites for closure. They also looked at the change to summer opening hours and how those changes might impact Leicestershire residents. Those recommendations were supported by Cabinet as part of an exempt report that came in June of this year. I think it's worth highlighting the legal requirements as well as the discretionary factors in how the RHWS service operates, and those are set out from point 15 of the report, as are some more detailed specifics around the council how we operate the service, which is from point 21. But they cover things like staffing numbers, how the public-facing service sits alongside the wider waste service, and the operational budget and opening times. And those are covered in detail in Appendix A and B, including a map of where all the sites are at. So just in terms of the proposals, Part B of the report lists the criteria against which all the sites were assessed for potential closure, the involvement of that review panel and the new detailed proposals being put forward to consult on. And they are covered in points 28 to 32 of the report. But if I just very quickly mention what they cover the closure of 3 recycling household waste sites at Market Harborough, Shepshed and Somerby, permanently changing Bottisford's opening from the Cabinet approved 5 days to 3, and the site has never recovered really post-COVID to a full 5 days, so is currently operating on 3 days a week. To reduce the summer opening at all of our sites between April and September from what we currently do, which is 9 till 7 every day, to 9 till 5 on 3 days, and then retaining 9 till 7 on the further 2 that they would be open. And that would allow access to some sort of weekday after work access of those sites, which was actually a request from a previous public consultation back in 2019. There are a couple of lesser changes proposed regarding which days Melton would be open, but that doesn't involve any reduction of the service in that part of the county, and it's just linked to hopefully rebalancing availability should the closures go ahead. And lastly, a proposal on closing all the recycling household waste sites on Christmas Eve. At the moment, the sites are open every day of the year apart from Christmas Day, Boxing Day and New Year's Day, but data shows we get really low visitor numbers on those days, and obviously it would allow the service to clear the sites ready for that really busy period post-Christmas. Just on the public consultation specifically, there's a timetable for the proposed public consultation in the report, which includes further engagement with scrutiny members, and it's set out in a table at point 33 of the report, but would ultimately involve a 12-week public consultation and online questionnaire, which would start on the 1st of November for 12 weeks. Lastly, there are a number of risks associated with implementing these proposals. The key ones are added to the report, as is a detailed equalities impact assessment, which we've appended as well. With that, Chair, I would refer Cabinet to the recommendations of the report for consideration. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Blake.
Thank you. And thank you to Jo for presenting the detail as she has. That saves me a job. We know our waste and recycling sites are highly valued in Leicestershire. So it is with some reluctance that I'm bringing a report forward to ask Cabinet to go out to consult to consider shutting 3 of the waste and recycling sites. Just some more context over and above what Jo has mentioned. All councils are facing financial pressures, not least Leicestershire County Council, and we're working really hard with the resources we have to deliver balanced budgets. And as Jo pointed out, every department at County Hall has been asked to find efficiency savings and savings more generally, and we've done super well over the years to balance our budget, certainly within the department. But this takes it a step further. But Derbyshire County Council, for instance, they too are consulting, I understand, on their waste and recycling site offer. Now, Derbyshire County Council has a geography 25% greater than Leicestershire County Council, but they currently have 9 waste and recycling sites. We currently have 14. So even should these proposals be accepted in due course, we will still have 11 sites. That's not to say that there are certain communities and taxpayers out there that will be affected by these proposals, but it is in the name of balancing our budgets. We feel they're pragmatic proposals, and I invite members of the public that are affected by the proposals to engage with the consultation. We are in listening mode. It will be a 12-week consultation, which starts at the beginning of November, and we will look very carefully at all the observations and points that are put to us about the proposals. And finally, I know there are some elected members, particularly in Shepshed and the Harbour District, most notably for Harbour East and Harbour West, that have already expressed some concerns and observations about the proposals. And I just want to tell them that their concerns will be looked at in great detail, and as part of the consultation will be responded to. So I'll move the proposals on the order paper and invite Cabinet to support.
Lee?
Yeah, thank you. Happy to second the proposal on the order paper. I have nothing else to add from a financial point of view. I think the report covers that in full. It's fully covered. All I would encourage people, it's quite a passionate subject. I'd encourage people to take part in the consultation. That's the reason it's there. And then obviously look forward to the consultation results when it comes back to Cabinet next year. Thank you.
Christine?
Thank you, Deborah. I'd just like to say thank you very much to the Highways Authority for how quick they came out and cleared the flooding on the A512 in Shepshed on Friday morning. But to go on with the Shepshed recycling tip, my views are already well known on this issue. In an ideal world, we shouldn't even be debating this, but we have no money, so tough decisions have to be made. However, I cannot support these recommendations. I owe it to the people, residents and businesses of Shepshed to stand up for their interests and for their services. To me, this is a matter of conscience. I also appeal once again to the MPs to pull their fingers out and get us more money. If the site is closed, has the increase at Loughborough, Colville and Louth been taken into account? If the site is closed, there will likely to be an increase in fly tipping. This has been shown to be the case on the 5Ds that the tip in Shepshed is currently closed. More waste will be deposited into the household bins, thus cutting back on the recycling. This goes against national policy and the policy at county. Shepshed residents will have to make longer car journeys to reach the other sites. This goes against national and council targets for reducing emissions. Shepshed has more new housing growth than most of other towns in Leicestershire. The new housing growth means that the total council tax income collected by county from Shepshed will increase. The new housing growth would likely mean the demand at Shepshed would increase. Has this been taken into account? Where is the logic in growing a town in terms of housing but taking away its services and facilities? How fair is this? Isn't it iconic that just as waste is now coming from all over the place to the new incinerator, Shepshed residents are now being made to take their own waste to other sites outside of Shepshed? My last comment at the moment, and it probably won't be the last in the end, on this proposal is just a reminder that county spent a lot of money improving the site only a couple of years ago. And for this reason, I shall not be supporting this proposal.
Thank you, Christine. Anyone else got any comments? I think we're all sitting here not wanting to do this, but at the moment we have no choice with the funding envelope that we've got. So I'll reiterate the plea that the MPs need to plead our case, even more so that we're having to make these cuts that we don't want to make because of our core funding issues. So it has been moved by Blake, seconded by Lee. All those in favour? Against?
Can I have it recorded that I've voted against? Thank you.
That's fine. Okay, the motion's passed. Thank you, Joe. On to item 5, Leicestershire Highways Design Guide Refresh, approval of policies and principle, pages 35 to 38. This next report provides an update on the work of Leicestershire Highway Design Guide Refresh project and seeks approval of the drafts, policies, principles and approaches as set out in the report. We're also being asked to agree the approach to the consultation on the draft guide. So I'll welcome Jenna Walker, Assistant Director, Environment and Transport, who will present the report.
Thank you, Chair. Good afternoon, everybody. As you said there, this report, the purpose of the report is to provide an update on the review of the Leicestershire Highways Design Guide, to seek approvals of the policies and principles, and to seek hopeful agreement to consult on the guide. As we've discussed before, the guide is a real mix of policy that affects a wide range of issues and some real technical engineering detail. So therefore, this report really focuses on that policy aspect to allow us then to inform some of that technical detail. So we've had to update the guide really, and the guide, it's as we've drafted the policy changes, seeks to reflect national guidance, particularly on planning policy, the local transport note LTM 120 and the government's gear change agenda around walking and cycling, net zero and environmental ambitions, financial considerations and placemaking principles. The principles of the report then have been developed in the context of these challenges and opportunities with stakeholder engagement, particularly our colleagues at district and planning authorities and stakeholders such as development industry. And they're set out in paragraph 50 of the report. A couple of the key sort of considerations that are set out in the report I just draw your attention to. Commuted sums. So commuted sums are an income we receive to help maintain assets as they're delivered through development. And we have looked at ways, we've just been hearing about financial challenges, whether we should significantly change the way we deal with commuted sums. But for the reasons set out in the report, on a risk-based way, it may seem like a good idea to charge more money for assets on the highway, but in actual fact, you're likely to result in developers not offering roads for adoption, which obviously causes problems sometimes for residents. We're unable then to sort of assure the quality of those assets. So for the reasons set out in the report, we're not looking to change considerably our approach to it, but we are looking to update our commuted sum charges based on the real cost of materials to us. Our approach to road adoption, similarly, we understand that it's a concern of residents where roads are not adopted. And we've looked at options, we looked at what other authorities are doing, and we're suggesting that our approach to road adoption should remain the same for now, appreciating that this may change in the future. And specifically, that means that residential roads that serves more than 5 dwellings or multiple application industrial and commercial developments would still be considered for adoption. And also just draw your attention to the report around our policy IN5. This is around access to key roads on the network. We have received, it's a fairly old policy, if you like, in terms of that. There has been some challenges around our reliance on IN5 in the appeal process for planning. So we're looking to update that to reflect a little bit more flexibility and a risk-based approach. But the council will continue to resist development where it feels there is significant safety risk due to access onto the network, and that would be A and B roads, but also other roads as well. And finally, there is consideration in the report to green infrastructure and sort of approved palette of materials to help manage cost, but also quality, but also allow for innovation around environment as well. So the next step for us, as set out in the report, are a consultation including scrutiny to continue to develop the guide, including the technical detail, and then using the feedback from that to develop a final version to present to yourselves in autumn 2024. If you are happy to support the recommendations that are set out in paragraph 2 and on the order paper to help progress these actions.
Thanks, Jenna. I'll move the motion as on the order paper. Richard?
Second that, Madam Chairman.
Any questions from any members? Okay, it's been moved by me, seconded by Richard. All in agreement? Thank you. Okay, on to item 6, the Melton Mowbray Distributor Road South, pages 59 to 80, and the supplementary report, pages 3 to 6. The next report provides a summary on the latest position regarding the MMDR South project and seeks approval for the proposed ways forward in the light of the financial implications detailed. The motion to be moved includes some amended recommendations and clarifies the position of Homes England and its approach to the provision of the Household Infrastructure Fund grant funding in connection with the MMDR South scheme. So Jana remains with us, and Simone Hines, Assistant Director of Finance, Strategic Property and Commissioning, will present the report. Over to you.
Thank you. Yeah, so as you said, the purpose of the report really is to provide an update on the Melton Mowbray Distributor Road South. I will start, no doubt, to refer to it as the MMDR South, because that's how we've been referring to the roads. The recent cost increases and the current estimate we have for the scheme, and the implications of that estimate then on our agreement with Homes England and next steps. Just to confirm, the scope of this report does refer to that southern section of the MMDR. So you'll be aware that we are out currently constructing the MMDR North East. This report doesn't directly affect that. What's a bit sort of clear on that scope. I think also it's worth being really clear that this report is about the mechanism by which we are seeking to deliver Melton Mowbray Distributor Road Southern section, not the principle of the section itself. We are remaining supportive of the need to deliver the southern section of the road. We remain committed to the strategy set out in Melton's local plan to do that. But and we'll go on to this, but what we are considering then is whether this HIF funding, so Housing Infrastructure Fund, is the appropriate mechanism at this time, given the financial challenges we've just spoken about, to deliver it. And I just wanted to be really clear about that from the off. So for the reasons in the report, the strategy and the scheme remain supported, but given the cost estimate increase, which including sort of a sensible contingency, stands at the moment at around £70.5 million, you'll appreciate that this is a significant increase on the scheme's estimate than when we started the project, and where the council's cost was expected to be around 24.9 million, including some forward funding, and 18.2 million of grant money from Homes England. Clearly now that is a significant change, and leaves a gap of £27.4 million compared to when we started. So the implications of having that cost increase are that our legal agreement with Homes England requires Leicestershire County Council to underwrite that gap, and that we would need to be able to confirm that position around now, hence where we are making this decision in order to move forward. So there are a number of considerations in determining whether that is the right thing to do, and officers across the authority, actually from several disciplines, so myself from Highways and Transport, Simone here from the financial side, but also planning colleagues as well, legal colleagues, have worked together to assess the pros and cons that are set out within the report. They start around paragraph 51 in the report, in order to make these recommendations today. And I think you'll see there's a number of considerations been made. Clearly, finance is a significant one for the reasons that have been discussed in earlier reports. Our planning considerations, delivery of housing, our overall ambitions, the pressure on highways and transport and education infrastructure, both within this area, Melton, but also across the housing area as a whole. And the conclusion of that assessment from officers is that it's not responsible to underwrite that financial cost at the moment. And I think in particular, it's worth highlighting that this stage of delivery, in this stage of development of the scheme, we've not yet got a contract for construction. We've not yet completed all the survey work. So the costs that we're being asked to underwrite could change again. And so these are all factors that we've taken into account in making the recommendations. I'd also just like to highlight that we have obviously been in discussion with Homes England, and they're aware of the challenges that we've experienced with the funding. And I think the sort of technicalities around the legal agreement are the reason for the supplementary report that kind of explains the process there, and the amended recommendations. But in essence, and I think it's important for people to understand that LCC not being, Leicestershire County Council, sorry, I shouldn't use the acronym, not being in the position to provide additional forward funding and wait a long time to get that money back, because we would have to borrow money to do so. And the report sets out that could be up to £9.8 million a year cost to us to borrow that funding. Does mean that we are in breach of our agreement with Homes England, and therefore, as we understand the implications would not be entitled to receive that grant. of 18.2 million in full. So no additional funding be drawn down. I think it's important to note as well that we've only drawn down 0.9 million of the money so far, of the funding so far, against a total spend of 2.2 million, and therefore it's not a question of returning grant money at this stage. I think clearly the recommendations then set out that it's not possible for us to underwrite those costs and agree to the terms and conditions of the Housing Infrastructure Fund agreement at the moment. However, I would highlight the commitment to joint working with our partners, the stakeholders who've worked with us on the project so far, Melton Council as well, to deliver the MMDR South, and to highlight that the construction of the MMDR North East, the delivery of that, provides a good basis for the strategy in Melton for a number of years at the moment, and provides us with an opportunity to consider an alternative delivery strategy for the southern section. So, taking on board all of the considerations set out in the report, can confirm that the recommendations in light of those are set out as in the order paper. And I'll just ask if Simone wanted to add anything to that summary.
Thank you. I'll just take the opportunity to emphasise some of the financial issues that Jan has already outlined, actually, and that the scheme proposed has a high level of financial uncertainty and risk for the council, and ultimately the costs that present in this paper could still rise further. We're at a very early stage of the scheme, and there could be further changes to those costs. And also the developer contributions that we are currently modelling are also subject to change and are not certain yet, and that's both in terms of the level of developer contributions that could be received for the scheme, and also the timescale that we would receive those. And there is a risk that if they're received later than we're currently forecasting, that those borrowing costs could actually rise further because of the forward funding element. And ultimately the £9.8 million worth of borrowing costs that we're currently forecasting could rise further, and they are already at an unmanageable level, and the risk is that they could actually rise even further than that. So unfortunately, the officer view is that given the current context that the council is operating in terms of its financial challenge and the medium-term financial strategy gaps that we're managing over the next 4 years, that the additional borrowing costs and additional risks that this scheme represents is not manageable at the current time, and that is the view of the Section 151 officer as well.
Thank you both. I'll move the motion. Just a couple of points from me, just to draw attention to the updated recommendations to ensure that people who are interested in this are reading the right recommendations and not the older ones. And also, could everyone mute that's online, please? And also draw attention to the recommendations there of our ongoing commitment to Melton Borough Council's local plan strategy. I think you highlighted that right at the beginning, Jana. We are still committed to trying to deliver this, but we have to deliver it in a different way. The local MP for Melton was informed several months ago of our financial difficulties in delivering this road in the current time with the HIF funding that we were offered. So they were well aware of the current situation we were with Homes England, and they've been kept fully informed about the ongoing discussions with Home England and our inability to hit their criteria for releasing that funding. A 27 million gap is something that we can't sign a blank check to that. We're just not in a financial position there. We don't have any additional funds. We've just, gone out to consultation to look at closing 3 recycling centres. There's no way we can sign a blank check for what could be more than 27 million, and we just cannot afford to borrow it with the revenue that we have at the moment. So I move the recommendations, but make sure that people read the right recommendations. I'll move to Lee now.
Thank you. With any project, it's vital that we make decisions with a clear head when new information is presented to us. This is why the report is here in front of us today. Extreme service reductions would be required to fund this scheme, and at a time when we already have challenging saving targets, this is unpalatable. Homes England are the government body responsible for accelerating house building. If they are not prepared to put another penny into the scheme, despite having millions of pounds handed back to them from other authorities who have already had to make the same decisions that we are making here today, then it is unfair to ask the residents of Leicestershire to commit tens of millions of pounds in additional funding to deliver this project. It is encouraging that the money spent to date has not been wasted and will put us in a good position to progress the scheme when either government funding is made available or the private sector household builder viability concerns are less severe. I also welcome the revised recommendations in the report which provide clarity, and I can confirm that we at Leicestershire County Council remain committed to delivering the Melton Mowbray Distributor Road South scheme, and I'm happy to second, Chair.
Thank you. Any speakers on this? Okay, so the recommendations are set out on the order paper, moved by me and seconded by Lee. All in favour? Thank you very much. Okay, we'll move on to item 7, which is Charnwood Borough Council's local plan, pages 81 to 84, and supplementary report, pages 7 to 20. So I've declared an interest in this item and we'll leave the room during the discussion. So Lee is going to take chair for this.
The next report provides an update on the current position of Charnwood Borough Council's local plan, the County Council's position in respect to the latest period of consultation, and the progress made on the interim transport contribution strategy. The supplementary report provides more detail on these issues. Julie Thomas, our Head of Planning, Historic and Natural Environment, and Jana Walker, Assistant Director of Environment and Transport, will present the report. Thank you.
Yes, I can confirm the purpose of the report is to provide Cabinet with an update on the current status of the Charnwood Borough local plan and the position of the County Council in respect of the latest period of public consultation, which primarily relates to the updated position on the viability of the plan and the 3 area transport strategies. This consultation closes on the 8th of November. As you will see from the report, the cost of delivering education, highways and transport in line with the local plan are currently estimated to cost at least £320 million, whilst the updated viability report states that the maximum developer contribution that could potentially be secured from allocated housing sites within the local plan is circa £200 million. That's for all contributions. This isn't an unusual situation, as most local plans can't deliver the infrastructure that they require. But by including policies within the local plan for infrastructure, it does enable us to apply for government money as and when it becomes available. It's proposed to prioritise education contributions over highways and transportation. The report at paragraph 50 sets out why it still remains in the best interests of communities of the Borough of Charnwood to have an up-to-date local plan in place to avoid speculative unplanned development coming forward. An update is included on the progress made on the interim transport contribution strategy, which has been subject to change since Cabinet last considered the matter. These changes are explained in more detail in paragraph 55 of the report, but basically now include sustainable transport packages, bus service improvements, and the next priority major network scheme programme. The revised interim transport strategy presents a much more comprehensive picture of the overall local plan mitigation strategy and associated costs. The proposed contributions mechanism now includes the pooling contributions collected from the 3 transport strategy areas. The revisions are based on a single multi-model and district-wide contributions calculation without any ring fencing, which would be simpler to administer and provide greater flexibility to pool and use contributions to deliver priority schemes. Thank you. I'm happy to take any questions.
Thank you. Anything to add, Jana?
Nothing this time. Thank you, Chair.
Okay, thank you. Members, any questions? No, we have no questions, in which case I'm happy to move the motion on the order paper. Christine?
I'm happy to second.
Thank you. Is that agreed? Can I have a show of hands, please, members? Okay, thank you. Just wait for Mrs. Taylor to return to the room to continue chairing the meeting. Thank you.
Okay, we'll move on to item 8, the latest position on the Hinckley National Rail Freight Interchange Development Consent Order, pages 85 to 208. So this report advises the process of the Hinckley National Rail Freight Interchange proposal and confirms the County Council's formal position on the application at this stage. So Julie Thompson, Head of Planning, Historic and National Environment, is here to present the reports. Over to you, Julie.
Thank you. The application is now at examination stage, which can last for up to 6 months, and issue-specific hearings are due to take place next week and potentially during the week commencing the 11th of December. It's anticipated that the examination will close on or before the 12th of March 2024. A decision on whether or not to grant a development consent order will be made by the Secretary of State for Transport. The examining authority have specifically asked for confirmation of the County Council's former position on the application. It's recommended that the County Council agrees that it has no objections to the principle of strategic rail freight interchanges, that based upon the warehousing and logistics in Leicester and Leicestershire study, there is a need for a strategic rail freight interchange to be located in South Leicestershire. However, based on the information submitted by the applicant to date, the Hinckley site within Baby District cannot be endorsed as an appropriate location given the issues raised by the County Council, particularly in its role as the local highway authority. That given the significant concerns which remain unresolved, particularly in relation to highways and transportation matters, the County Council objects to the Hinckley National Rail Freight Interchange and considers the examining authority should recommend refusal to the Secretary of State. Happy to take any questions.
Thanks, Julie. It's a very long report if people are interested to read that, but no, I support the stance that the County Council has taken on this, so I will move the motion on the order paper. Peter?
Thank you, Chair. And I'd also like to thank Dr. Luke Evans and Alberto Costa, I know, who have been working with local residents on this issue across their respective electoral areas. There's a lot of concern locally with residents about the scheme. And as you say, that there remains some unresolved issues from a highways and transportation perspective, and I think they really need to be resolved. But I'll second the motion on the order paper.
Thank you. Anyone wish to speak? Louise?
Yeah, I just want to say I support this. Obviously, being a county councillor from that area, you know, the fact that specific information has not been forthcoming from the developers has made it extremely difficult for the county council as well as district councils to be making any decisions specifically to for this proposal. So and I am aware that there was a petition went to Downing Street last week stating that this was not acceptable in the current form. And I think it's down to the developers to actually, you know, provide the information that's necessary, because I don't think suitable decisions can be made on what's been produced. Thank you.
Any other speakers? Okay, moved by myself, seconded by Peter. All in favour? Thank you. We'll move on to item 9, which is items referred from overreason scrutiny. There was none. Item 10 is any other items which the chairman has decided to take as urgent. There are none, so thank you. That brings today's meeting to a close.
That's it first.